Hey ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be part 2 to What If Naruto Died and Was Reincarnated into the World of That Time I Died and Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Alright, with the title out of the way, make sure to like and subscribe. There's not a like goal, but be nice. Do it anyway. Otherwise, there's going to be a monster under your bed tonight because I have powers like that and I'm cool, and because I want to get the normie YouTuber. That's what they always say, and I was told to do that. So, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's just jump right into the what if itself. So one thing I would like to discuss before we, continue further into this what if is how exactly Rimaru's civilization, his monster kingdom, is actually coming along. Well, the start of it was pretty similar, the goblins and the wolves and stuff like that. That still all happens normally, but the first major difference would actually be when he goes to the kingdom of Dwargon. Because when he does go there, he still has drinks and everything like that, but the dwarves aren't just gonna be able to leave with him, and there's no reason for them to get exiled, because Naruto actually ended up killing the person that they ended up hitting, like that noble guy. So he's not even going to be there. He's already dead. That means that they're not going to go with him. So Rimaru leaves. He goes back, and he still has pretty much no idea how to build actual houses. He and the goblins are actually going to have to figure out how to do that themselves, meaning their kingdom is going to progress much slower than it would originally, along with the fact that I don't even know if he's going to form an alliance with them, at least not right away, because their kingdom isn't going to take off nearly as fast as it would have originally. They're eventually still going to figure out how to build houses and roads and things like that, but it's going to be nowhere near as fast, as efficient, or as, nice and actual, quality buildings like they were in the original. So with that actually happening, let's just jump right back into Naruto's side, where he decided he wanted to start his revenge. So he goes to the kingdom of Falmouth. Now, you'd be like, whoa, that's the one that has a lot. They have a lot of people alive there, and it's an all-around bad situation. Their king's corrupt. They have a lot of, nobles and stuff like that. And that is actually what, in Season 2, the ones that actually ended up killing a bunch of the members of Rimaru's group, along with some of his closest friends. So that is exactly where Naruto is going to head. Because that is that is a big, trade center, big trade nation, and that's going to be one of the first things that Naruto's able to hear about. So he heads over there. Now, they have a holy church. They have many people who would be able to deal with monsters. However, Naruto isn't necessarily a monster in the way that you were really expecting. He's kind of technically one, but at the same time, he is part human, part fox, and part demon. Meaning that effects against monsters, such as the ones that were put on Rimaru and the rest of his civilization, would not work as heavily on Naruto. They would still work, but it would probably not be to the same extent. We'll say they're cut in half for what they would actually have been doing, so Naruto can still use most of his magicules. So, with that being said, Naruto ends up entering the city, where he sees many humans standing in front of him. Naruto is starting to get a little bit excited. None of them really seem all that strong, but he hasn't really seen anybody that, would be all that strong yet. So with this happening, Naruto would begin, wandering around, looking around, and seeing who he wants his first target to be. Naruto, at this point, knows a lot of mass-scale magic. He's not as strong as, Season 2 Demon Lord fucking Rimaru, but he's kinda nearing that level. He's OP as fuck, to say the absolute least. And all their forces wouldn't necessarily be at the kingdom at that exact moment. So, with that happening, when Naruto shows up there and he begins to cause a little bit of chaos, he starts by killing random civilians. Naruto doesn't discriminate, let's be honest here. He's part Kurama at this point, so it doesn't really matter, along with him having the genes of a demon. So, yeah, Naruto isn't really going to discriminate here. Going after them first, thinking that this might be a good way to attract some attention from the stronger people, he decides that that's going to be his first target. So going after some random civilians, obviously, after Naruto kills a few of them, maybe a few hundred, few thousand, depending on how bunched up they were, that is when main troops would show up, and people from the Holy Church, who are actually quite powerful. They were pretty much able to defeat Rimuru, like, let's be honest here. He had to, leave, make them think he was dead, but the effects wouldn't work anywhere near as much as they would. And along with the fact that they have to be able to set up that barrier, which might be surrounding the entire kingdom of Falmouth, let's be honest here, because, the Holy Church is there, so if Naruto ends up by the Holy Church, it's pretty likely that he will be put under that same spell, but like I was discussing earlier, it probably wouldn't have the same effect on him. We'll say it's like 50% negated because of his human genes. So that actually happening, Naruto does end up next to the Holy Church, because obviously that's where, the strongest magical sources are coming from, because, they're the strongest. So with Naruto showing up in front of the church, he decides, might as well kick it off with a bang. Launching a massive fireball that explodes on impact on the church, completely incinerating the building, leaving only a few people standing in front of Naruto. Some of which we don't actually know who they are, but let's just assume there's more than one powerful person in the church. Come on, there more than likely is. And one of them is the person that Rimuru ended up having to fight in the second season. The person that happens to be able to use that barrier. As they begin preparations to set it up, I highly doubt they can just immediately, automatically put up the barrier. 3 or 4 of the higher members of the Holy Church charge at Naruto while she begins preparations for putting up this barrier, knowing just how strong Naruto most likely is because of the immense amount of magical energy coming out of him. So the 4 members of the Holy Church stand nothing against Naruto, but he doesn't necessarily want to kill them immediately. He knows that he needs to have a little bit of fun with this at the very least. So with that actually happening, Naruto, a few minutes later, ends up dealing with the last one, as he slams his hand through him after sharpening his hand. He now looks up, seeing the person, who seems kind of like the head of them, like the leader, trying to gather up an immense amount of magicules. Naruto decides he might as well let it happen. Something interesting might happen if he does. So Naruto stands there watching her. She thinks that he's being absurdly cocky, which, isn't necessarily wrong, and a few seconds later she manages to put up the barrier. Again, I don't really know, the requirements for doing it, but I'm imagining if Naruto's literally letting her, she's going to be able to do it, so yeah. She manages to put up the barrier, and Naruto immediately feels his strength cut in half. He's like, oh, that's what she was doing. This could be a little bit more interesting now. She charges towards Naruto with her sword, and actually manages to cut Naruto's arm a little bit, where Naruto doesn't really feel much actual damage, but then the sage inside Naruto's head tells him what's actually happening. She is not really cutting Naruto's physical body. She's cutting Naruto's, spiritual body, and after a certain amount, Naruto will die. Naruto's like, oh, this is quite interesting. Naruto draws his own sword and blocks hers. He goes in for a slash and manages to cut her leg a little bit, negating her movement a little bit, kind of evening out the playing field, considering Naruto is at half strength right now, but, let's be honest, Naruto would probably be able to beat her anyway, because, he's kind of OP at that point. So, Naruto and her have a sword clash, as they begin, clashing swords and everything like that, and, okay. Naruto's very, 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 very strong. So, okay, let's be honest, Naruto's going to win. Come on, Naruto's kinda OP in this what if. The only people that are actually going to be able to challenge him are, the actual demon lords, so that's kinda how that's gonna work. So Naruto does manage to deal with her, killing her, and then he goes and pretty much massacres the rest of everybody there. And something interesting actually ends up happening to Naruto. So something that is quite interesting is that after Naruto pretty much massacres the entire kingdom of Falmouth, killing hundreds of thousands of people, that meets the requirements for transforming into a demon lord. So with this actually happening, Naruto begins his transformation as the sage begins talking in Naruto's head. The seed has been planted. But that will be for the next part of this What If, where I will be back either tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. We'll find out, but probably tomorrow because I should have time tonight to record another video. We'll see. So I'll see you guys in the next part. Peace out. Bye.